Hello my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach. Welcome back to my crochet channel. Today is our first video for our Christmas in July 2026. And the first thing we're going to make are these adorable snowman ornaments. This is also our July ornament of the month. It's super easy, super fun. I would say it's even beginner friendly because the whole thing is basically single crochet stitches. It's just lovely and adorable, and I absolutely love how they turned out. Now I have these two, and you'll notice from the pictures at the beginning that I also made one in traditional Christmas colors, and that's the one we're going to do together. I did this one in just teal for our first test. I loved how it turned out, and I thought since it's July, I should make one in patriotic colors. This one I added a nice little sparkle snowflake, and this one I added a little flag button that I had. That way it's 4th of July-ish, and anybody who wants to give one to a veteran or someone in the military, that would make a nice touch to make it in red, white, and blue and add a little flag button. But this is our little snowman ornament that we're going to make together today. It's really cute. It measures about 7 inches tall, so it's a really nice size. And this one I added the ribbon hanger, but you don't have to. You could make it without it and stick them in a stocking, or just have them around the house. Make one that looks like each one of your kids or grandkids with their favorite colors. Aren't they just adorable? I just love them. Now you can find the complete pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. All right, let's talk about the supplies that we need to make our snowman ornament. Now, of course, we're going to need some yarn. You're going to need some white, medium weight, number 4 acrylic yarn. And then you're going to need some colors that you want to make the hat and the pom-pom and the scarf out of. Now I'm going with traditional colors for our demo. I'm going to be using green and red both on my snowman. Okay? All right, now you just need a small amount of the red and the green, and you need maybe about an ounce of the white. It doesn't take very much at all. Now this would be a great way to get into your leftover acrylic medium weight number 4 yarns and whip up a whole bunch of different snowman. Yes, you want to make your snowman in white, but you can use your details and use up all your extra yarn, make a whole bunch of them, and by Christmas time you'll have a bunch to donate. And everybody loves a snowman. You can even make them look like little snow girls. Maybe add some ponytails or pink lips. Make it look like a snow woman or a snow girl. You know, for your grandkids or your kiddos. Now, we're going to be stitching today with our H-hook, which is a 5mm. You need your scissors and also a needle to weave in ends. And then you need a bunch of little things. I've got a whole bunch of Christmas buttons and flatbacks out here. And you can choose, like I put this beautiful blue snowflake because it matched the color that I chose. I used this red, white, and blue flag button because I made a patriotic one. The Christmas one, you already saw at the beginning which button I used, but I haven't at this point decided which button I want to use, or maybe you can use 1 or 2 or more buttons. It's totally up to you. You know, you can put a puppy in a Christmas sweater if they have a puppy. You know, gingerbread, there's different ornaments, and anything you can find at any of your craft stores to add to it. You can use buttons or flatbacks. You could even use pom-poms if you wanted to, or just whatever that you can find to add to your snowman. Now, you're also going to need a ribbon if you want to add a hanger for it, because, you know, it is an ornament that we're doing. And I just used a piece of thin red ribbon. You can do that, or you can leave it off and let them play with it. Stick it in their stocking, or just give it to them as a fun little toy. You can also make a bunch, put them in a basket, and make them for decoration. I just love snowmen. I love having them around the house, and I think they're super fun to make. Now, the other thing you're going to need is just a little bit of orange for the carrot nose and a little bit of black. And those are both medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. All right. Now, the last thing you're going to need is some stuffing. And it's up to you how much stuffing that you want to use. But I'm going to say just a big old handful like this is more than enough. All right. Oh, and don't forget, if you're using flat backs, you're going to want to grab your glue gun to glue those on. Okay. If you're using just a button that has, the loop on the back, you can always sew that on. But on this kind of project, I go ahead and just hot glue it on, even if it's going to be played with. I usually do hot glue it on. That way I know it's going to stay on there nice and secure. And I also use just a tad of hot glue when I bring the scarf down, just to keep it on the front so it stays put. If not, it kind of sticks up. But you could do that with just a stitch. Put the same color yarn on a needle and just do a stitch and make a stay stitch too. Like a basting stitch. You could do that as well. Now we're going to be starting at the top of our snowman. We're going to begin with the hat and then work our way down. All right. So I'm starting with my green color here. Made my slip knot and I'm going to chain 2 chains. All right. Now in this second chain from the hook, I'm going to stitch 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I forgot to tell you that we do need a stitch marker because we are going to be stitching in the round. So let me grab a stitch marker. And I like to mark the last stitch of each row. So I have 6 single crochets, and I'm going to put my stitch marker in that last stitch of those 6. Because we're going to be stitching in the round, and what that means is we're not going to be joining our rows. We're just going to be continuing around, which is very typical of amigurumi or stuffies and things like that. All right? So row 1, 6 single crochets. All right, let's do row or round 2. We're going to place 2 single crochets in each of those 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to remove my stitch marker. 11, 12. There we go. And I'm going to put my stitch marker back in that last stitch. Pull that just a smidge. There we go. So now for round 2, I have 12 single crochets because we placed 2 in each of the 6. Now we're ready for row 3. On row 3, we're going to do 1 and 2. So 1 single crochet in the next and 2 in the next. 1 and 2. 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 1. Get my stitch marker out and 2. There we go. We'll stitch our stitch marker. We will place our stitch marker back in our last stitch. And so for row 3, we have 18 single crochets. All right, so let's do row 4. And on row 4, we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2 and 2 in the next. So 1, 2, and 2 in the next. 1, 2, and 2 in the next. 1, 2. My yarn keeps getting stuck. There we go. 2 in the next. 1, 2, 2 in the next. 1 and 2, 2 in the next. 1, 2, pull out my stitch marker, and 2 in that next stitch, and put our stitch marker back in. Now I am stitching a little bit snug, and that's why I'm having a little trouble getting my stitch marker in, but when you're making a stuffy like this, you do want to make sure that your stitches are nice and tight, because we don't want any of that stuffing to show through. All right, so for row 4, we have 24 single crochets around, and now we're not going to increase anymore. All right, so that brings us to row 5, and on row 5, we're just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those single crochets all the way around. And so again, we'll have 24 single crochet stitches because we are not increasing anymore. One single crochet in each of our single crochets all the way around, and I'm almost around there. And so again, for row 5, we're going to have 24 single crochets, and that's how many single crochets you're going to have on each of your rows through the body of the snowman until we get to the bottom and we start doing some decreased stitches. All right, so I'm going to take out my stitch marker. I'm going to stitch my last single crochet for row 5, almost said row 4, and put my stitch marker back in. Now you'll notice that it's curling up, but this is the outside and this is the inside, so we're going to curl it out so that the pretty side is on the outside. All right, and that's how it should look at row 5. Now if you're making the hat on your snowman a solid color, you would do one more row of solid 1 double crochet in each around. But I want to do a stripe of red on mine. So I'm going to cut my green. And I'm going to bring in this red just for a stripe of red around the bottom of my snowman hat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the last portion of that single crochet and bring in my red. All right, and we'll snug those down to the inside there, and then I'll just do one row. Make sure I'm in the right spot there. There we go. One row of 1 single crochet in each in my red. Now if you're, like I said, if you're doing your hat the solid color, for row 6 you're just going to do 1 single crochet in each, whether it's the solid or you made a stripe like me, all the way around for the bottom edge of our hat for our snowman. And this would look really cute. Say you were making a pink hat and you wanted to come in and do another color, maybe a lime green like this, or even like a pink or a blue. Just have a lot of fun with it. And the truth is, like I showed you with the red, white, and blue one, you can use variegated yarns and just have some fun with whatever leftover yarns that you have. I just love a project where we can make something fun and use up some leftover yarns. All right, so I'm to my stitch marker. I'm going to do my last stitch in red. All right, and I'm going to put my stitch marker back in. Whoopsie. There we go. So I got a few ends to weave in later, but I'm going to tuck those inside so you can see how it looks. And see how it's starting to puff up like that? Because we're working down the sides of the snowman now, and it's going to be basically a long tube, and then we'll form the neck, and then of course the bottom as well. But this is how it should look at row 6 if you changed colors, or if you did that row 6 in the same color that you were using. So we've made the top of our snowman's hat. Before we go and add the white, I've clipped off my yarn here. And what we want to do is go inside, because we want to make sure we close up that hole if there is one. All right, so we're going to grab our needle. And what we want to do is just go around that circle, or that hole, stitch around there, and just make sure there's not a hole in the top of our snowman's hat. Because it's literally his head, the top of his head. We don't want that, okay? There we go. I don't even bother to cut that. That's going to be inside. But the next thing I do is I go ahead and do what I call a stay knot. And I just do a little loop like that. And then I'll just tuck that up inside, okay? And so now we're ready for row 7. All right, so we're going to grab our white, and we're going to go, I forgot to do this. We need to go over here to start that next stitch and finish with the white. There we go. That gives us a nice finish, because now we're going to be working on the snowman's body. All right, we've got our stitch marker in our last stitch, and so now we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each of those single crochets around. And remember to try to keep your stitches snug, because we don't want any of the stuffing to show through. Although when we're doing the white portion of our snowman, because you know snow is white, the stuffing won't show as much anyway. But I just really like to encourage you, when we're doing this type of thing, they call them amigurumis, stuffies, little squishies, stitch a little bit snugger, a little bit tighter, so that the stuffing doesn't show through. All right? All right, so I've come around. I'm going to pull out my stitch marker. I'm going to go ahead and get over here, because I did that extra stitch on the next row. So I'm going to put it back where it was, where we changed colors. All right, and so now we're starting our body of our snowman. All right, this is his hat, and now we're going to work down and do the body of our snowman. But this is how row 7 should look. So now what you're going to do is you're going to continue to repeat row 7 for 17 more rows. And you're going to do that in our white yarn so that we have the body of the snowman, okay? So you're going to repeat row 7 for 17 more rows, and that's just 1 single crochet in each of our stitches around. So I have stitched those additional 17 rows, and that brings us up to row 24. All right, now before we go any farther, we're going to go ahead and stuff up into the head. And it's up to you how tight you want to stuff it. If you want your snowman to be stuffed tightly so it holds its shape well, or you want it to be squishy so the grandkids can squish it, it's totally up to you. I'm making mine just a little bit more stuffed than some of my squishies because I want it to hold its shape more, okay? All right, so now we've stuffed it, and we will be adding more stuffing to it, all right? But now what we're going to do is we're going to start decreasing down the bottom of our snowman. All right, I'll move my stitch marker over there. And so this brings us to row 25. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in the next 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then we're going to stitch the next 2 together. And the way we do that is we go in, pull up a loop, then we go in the next one and pull up a loop. We yarn over and go through all 3 loops. That's stitching 2 single crochets together. And we'll repeat this all the way around. So 1 single crochet in the next 2, and stitch the next 2 together. 1 single crochet in the next 2, and stitch the next 2 together. All right, and we'll do this all the way around for row 25. And you'll notice that it's going to start pulling in because we're starting to decrease the bottom of our snowman. Let me get that off of there. All right, so 1 single crochet in the next 2, and still remember to hold your tension kind of tight here, and stitch the next 2 together. 1 single crochet in the next 2. Let me move my stitch marker so we can stitch those last 2 together. I'll go ahead and put my stitch marker back in. There we go. And so we decreased, and you can see it's coming down. You'll also notice that we will really need to add more stuffing, but we didn't want the stuffing in the way when we're trying to decrease down. But also we went ahead and stuffed the top, because when you start decreasing, it's hard to get it all the way up in the top. All right, let's do another decrease row. The next row we're going to do 1 single crochet and then the next 2 together. So it's 1 and 2. 1 single crochet in the next, stitch the next 2 together. 1 single crochet in the next, and stitch the next 2 together. A little more yarn out here. One and the next 2 together. All right, almost around there. 1, I'm going to move my stitch marker so I can stitch in those last 2 together. There we go. I'll put my stitch marker back in. All right, so what we did in these last 2 rows is we decreased in row 25 from 24 to 18. On row 26, we stitched from 18, or decreased from 18 to 12 stitches. All right, and you can see that hole is starting to close. So what we want to do at this point is go ahead and add just a little bit more stuffing, making sure we have enough stuffing in the bottom, of our snowman. Almost lost my stuffing. Let me move that, that's making noise. There we go. So now the stuffing's all the way up there. Now we're ready to do another decrease row, and we'll be stitching 2 single crochets together all the way around. So we'll go and do our 2 single crochets together. Then we'll stitch the next 2 single crochets together all the way around. And you may have to push your stuffing in a little bit, but it's good to have it all the way up there to make sure the bottom of your snowman is stuffed. Although I do like to kind of flatten the bottom of my snowman. That way if I want them to sort of sit up, they sit up a little better. But you can do that whether it's super stuffed or not. Alrighty. Alrighty, got one last to go. We'll pull out that stitch marker and do those last 2 stitches. So we stitch the last 2 together. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn. Won't need that stitch marker anymore. We're going to go ahead and pull this. And we'll grab our needle and we're going to gather that close so we don't have a hole in the bottom of our snowman. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll just go around those stitches. And then I like to kind of make a cross across the bottom, back and forth. Sometimes you end up with a little bump there, and so I like to kind of go over it and pull it down, just so the bottom looks nice and neat. We do not want the bottom to look messy, and we do not want the bottom to come out. And then once you've done that, just swirl it around, take it through the side, and clip. So now we've got the hat and the body of our snowman. So the next thing we're going to do is form his neck. So I've cut a piece of yarn. It's about probably 13 or 14 inches long, maybe longer. I always cut more than I need. I'd rather have too much yarn on my needle than not enough. And so you want to make sure the back of your snowman's to the back. And then we're going to count down to the 13th row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Alright, so then we'll go around the back. And we're going to go in and out about every 2 stitches, going around the 13th row. Now, if you want the head of your snowman to be bigger, by all means, go down lower. If you want it to be shorter, go up. It's totally up to you. Okay? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. Make sure I'm in the back here. Alright. So let's go around here. Don't pull this through because you're going to need that to tie it. And we're just kind of gathering in and out to the back. Alright. Now we're going to gently pull this. Alright. Pull it in snugly, but don't break your yarn. And then now we're going to wrap this around to the back and tie it again. And that's going to give us a nice sturdy neck that's not going to come undone. And then I like to tie this in a couple of knots. And remember, this won't be seen if your knot's a little messy because we're going to put the scarf over it. There we go. So now we have a snowman, and I usually go like this with mine. I want him to look like a couple of marshmallows. I want him to be a little fatter. Okay? But this is how it should look at this point. Okay? And now we're going to do all the details. We need to make a scarf. We need to make a pom-pom. We have to put on his face and his buttons and all his details. So the next thing we're going to do is make our snowman scarf. So I'm going to set him out of the way. I want my scarf to be in this pretty bright Christmas red. Alright, make sure I got enough yarn out here. And it's a really simple process. We're going to start with our slip knot. And we're going to chain 41 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we're just going to turn single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then 1 single crochet in each of those chains, working all the way back down our chain. We don't want it to be too thick because then it doesn't fit well on our little snowman, and this works just perfect. And then once we get this all stitched, we're going to add a couple of strands to the ends for fringe, and then we'll add it to our snowman. Super simple, just 1 single crochet in each of those chains across. All right, I stitched one single crochet in each of my chains across. I'm going to cut my yarn and tie that off, but I'm not going to cut those. Those will be part of my fringe, and then we'll add some more fringe. Let me grab some more red here. There we go. And I'm going to cut another piece here, and we'll just add that to this end that doesn't have any fringe. All right. Now I'm going to add some green fringe to both ends. And I'm not really measuring, I'm just cutting some strands because I'm going to trim them when I get them on. All right. So we'll add another one to this side. And then another one. And that gives us some fringe. Oops, didn't get both those pieces. Get in there. There we go. All right. So I've got 4 on this side, plus those 2 red ones. So I'll go ahead and just trim that. And the length of the fringe is up to you. I kept it a little bit longer. I felt like it laid better. All right, so we put red on here, so we want to put some green. There we go. Alrighty, I think I'll go on this side and add a little bit of green on this side. Now they don't have to be exactly the same unless you just want them to be. You know me, I like things to be just a little bit whimsical. Alright. Now I have my scarf all made and ready to go on my snowman. Okay, that's the back, so we want to put it on the front. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it around, and then we'll take the one from the bottom and loop it around to the front. And because they normally stick up, I grab my hot glue and I just put just a little bit on that scarf. Get that string off of there. And then I just sort of lay it like that. That way it's going to stay put. There's a string on there. That's the only thing about hot glue is you get the strings. But that's going to keep that scarf in place. I don't worry about this one, just this one, because I want to put something right there, which I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to use this little sparkly package as my button there. My decoration, and I'll just go ahead and put that on there. All right, so I've got a little sparkly package on my scarf. The next thing our snowman needs is a pom-pom. So the size of the pom-pom is kind of up to you. What I do is I cut a strand of yarn, looks like it's about 8 inches long, maybe 10, doesn't matter. And then I take my 2 fingers and wrap both the colors. If you're doing 1 color or 3 colors, it's all done the same. You just wrap it around just a few times like that. I like it to be full, but not like crazy full, because remember, it's a tiny pom-pom. All right, and then I just sort of take it like this, lay it across there, grab those strands of yarn, and tie a knot. This is the trickiest part. There we go. Nice and tight. We'll use these strands to attach it to the top of the hat. All right, now what we need to do is trim the pom-pom. So the first thing we need to do is just cut all the loops. Some of them are a little longer than the other, but don't worry, we're going to trim them all. So I just want the loops done. All right, let me grab my tray here that I use. All right, so the first thing I do is I sort of pull it forward. And I trim all the longest ones off. And I give it a little shake. And I make sure these strands are out of the way. And I flatten it. I have been known to cut off those long strands by accident. The ones that we need to attach the pom-pom to the hat. So don't do what I did and do that. I just kind of move them around as I go around. There we go. And now I have a cute little pom-pom. Let's attach it to our snowman. Whoops. There we go. Alright, so what I do is I just take my crochet hook and I go through the top like this and I grab one strand. Alright. And then I kind of move it this way and I go through the same spot and I pull it this way. Alright. And I make sure I'm in the back. Pull it to the top. Move that strand out of the way. Just like that. Nice tight pom-pom. Because the last thing you want to happen is this pom-pom to come off when the kiddos are playing with it. Alright. I tie 3 knots. That strand out of the way. We'll do one more. There we go. And then I usually just trim that so it blends in with the pom-pom. Now, this one is a little bit smaller than some of the other ones. There's actually a loop I missed. There we go. But again, it's totally up to you the size pom-pom you want to put at the top of your hat. So I have threaded onto my needle a long piece of black yarn, about, I don't know, 16, 18 inches. We're going to be doing the eyes, the smile, and the 3 buttons. And the way that I did them, here's the front, and I want to try to keep it to the front. And we're going to go sideways. And we're going to leave that tail of yarn out for now. Alright? And I'm going to go just like that and go over it again. And then go a few blocks over here. And make his other eye. And the spacing of the eye, of course, is totally up to you. He can have wider eyes, closer eyes, however you want to do your snowman. Alright, so now the eyes are on, and we're going to go down just a little bit, and we're going to make that little V smile. And so we want to make it even. Alright, so there's the smile. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come down through the neck and make the buttons. Alright, before we do this though, we're going to take our crochet hook, go in the back of his head, sort of to the side, and grab that piece of yarn. There we go. And pull it inside. Now, if you pulled too hard, and you may have to, mine didn't go in far enough. There we go. Mess with it to make sure it didn't make your eye weird, okay? But there's our smile. Now we're going to make our little buttons, and it's just the same way we did the eyes. You just go around, then go down a little bit. And the placement, again, is totally up to you. If you want your buttons close together. And the truth is, if you can get a hold of some little tiny buttons, you could just sew your buttons on. Okay, so there's our buttons. And now I'm just going to go in, swirl my yarn around, and come out over here. So now all we have left to do as far as the snowman itself is that carrot nose. Okay, so let me grab my orange yarn. My snowman got a little twisted there. There we go. Alright, and the nose is super duper simple. So I'm going to put my yarn on here. And again, I've got more than I need. And we want to make the nose look like a carrot. Alright, so I'm going to come over here from the side. I'm going to come up over here. Just forget about that for right now. and we're going to make a long V. Whoops. I don't know how that happened. There we go. All right, there's our long V. And then we'll just come up here. All right, so I've come back over this way, and I'm going to make this come out just a little bit longer so that the tip is longer. See how that looks longer? So now it looks like a carrot nose. All right, so then I'm just going to go back in here, go to the back, just like that. Okay, and I'm going to cut this one off. Then we can thread this one back on. There we go. And we'll just go in. Oops, that black one's showing. I want to hide that. And cut that off. Let's hook that in. All right, so now my snowman has a face, he has buttons, he has everything he needs except a hanger to hang him up. Okay, so to make the hanger, it's really simple. You just grab a piece of yarn or piece of ribbon, cut it nice and long, about 12 inches. You can add beads to it if you want to. I just didn't. All right, and so we're going to go sort of to the back, go in the hat, and you'll have to get through some of that stuffing. And just pull that through like that. Pull it up. There we go. And again, you can add some beads to it if you want. I just didn't. I want the snowman to be the star on this one. Alrighty. And now it has a hanger. You can hang it up. You can stuff it in a stocking. Or just set it up on your mantle with his other snowman friends. Make one of each of your grandkids and you've got snowman, snow girl representations of all your family. It's just so much fun. Isn't that cool? And I love this little sparkly package I put on there. Super cute. And I like it in the Christmas colors as well. All right, so that's our first Christmas in July project. And don't worry, if you don't have time to make it right now, this video will always be here for you, even if you wait till Christmas Eve to make it. Just have some fun and make some snowmen.